And now we're live. Hey guys, thanks for joining in on this, the third week of the Crypto Bull Bear episode. And as usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. We have the legends, Coop Soup and Faboose. Faboose is going to be doing the bear. Coop Soup's going to be doing the bull. And why don't we just get started here, Boosie? Get this going. Get this crack-a-lacking. I'll let you take it over.
Right on. Thank you, Josh. And, just really wanted to start out and say, I think this format is awesome. Anyone who follows me, especially on Bitcoin, knows boost on bear doesn't happen often, but I think everyone should work this in kind of to their habits of looking at both cases so you don't get that tunnel vision. You know, if you get tunnel vision, you're going to make bad trades. So let me get my screen up here.
I agree completely.
Yeah. There we go. And to play off the disclaimer, this is possibilities, not saying trade this, just going to offer up, some different things that I'm seeing here. So jumping into it on Bitcoin, we're going to start with that as kind of laying the groundwork for the narrative here, right? So I always like to start kind of looking at a large picture, right? Don't just focus in on what's happening now. Look at where we're at, where we came from. So we're all familiar with this formation here, right? We had this awesome run up to 20K. Now we kind of been trailing down, right? So what I like to do too is my trend line here, you'll see it's not going from the top. I think a lot of times we focus too much on tops and lows. What I really like to look for is points of activity. So that's why I have this line here. And as we can see, we've just been grinding down. And the big thing I want to focus on here is kind of this floor, right? So as we fell from 20 back in February, we already established this floor right here around 6K, right? So every time we're hitting this box, we see lots of movement, even before this run to 20K. And why I'm focusing on this is every time I get this big pop up, I get big movements. Well, right now, all of a sudden, we're not really seeing a big pop right now, right? It's kind of holding out here. And there's other reasons for this. But first, let's look at, okay, so we've gotten to this last pop in this area. And really what we had here was this 8,500 run. Let me just bring up a couple extra things here. So what we had here is it kind of, we had the ETF hype. Everyone was on this train. And then bam, we slammed into this resistance up here and just dropped right back through this blue box, actually, which kind of surprised me. But we held the floor. All right, so we bounced off that floor. But what happened here, right? On this retrace from 8,500, all of a sudden we found huge resistance, as you would expect, at your 0.5 retracement, the top of this box, and also this 200 EMA. We didn't hold the 100 EMA, and we just kind of fell through. And now we're stuck right now under this box, which again, that's kind of worrying to me. I'm used to seeing a lot of activity here. Now, maybe some reasons for this is kind of alt season, right? We keep hearing over and over and over about alt season. So what I'm going to do quick is just jump into Ethereum a little bit. That's the next chart, just to tie the narrative together, right? So we have this run up in December where Ethereum and the BTC pair bottomed, right? That's what we'd expect to see. In February, ETH, and BTC ran up. That's where we first found this bottom, right? So if we go back to that pair, fast forward to where we are right now, when we were at the low before, right, back in February, Ethereum was at its high. We have completely inversed now, 100%. We're right back to February. I would have thought, right now we should be higher on this pair. So what that's showing us is a lot of money is outflowing. And why we're holding here right now is Bitcoin's been absorbing a ton of this market cap, right? Everything that's flowing outwards kind of had to come in through Bitcoin. Now it's going back out through Bitcoin for these ICOs and whatnot. So what I'm seeing though is alts kind of led on these sell-offs, right? Look how far away we are from this downtrend. What I'm thinking is we're going to see a little bit of a spike on some of these alts, and Bitcoin's either going to stay flat here or we're going to see it where it does pump up a little bit towards this 100 EMA, back towards kind of that 0.5 area. And then I think you see alts start dumping again, right back into it. And with how much has been absorbed here, if you look past through this chart, every time this is held, eventually these people have to be washed out. You know, people right now are buying this heavily just because history is telling them to. You know, we really need to see this floor wash out and actually start testing this real long-term trend we have here. You know, we haven't tested it. We never came back and really tested this breakout in the 4,000 region. I just see a lot of pressure coming into Bitcoin, specifically from the alt market. So again, bouncing back then to Ethereum, right? So we had this huge sell-off that everyone's aware of right now. And it looks like we got a little overextended. And also to me, this seems a lot more like an opportunity play, more so than people actually thinking it's a bottom. We got really extended from this downtrend that we've just been grinding on yet again. And all the EMAs have flipped. I mean, we're just so oversold right now. It's insane. So I think the few things that we see right here, this 200, we look back, this 200 price range, you know, kind of became support, it looked like. Now we're starting to fight against it. So, I mean, we went up to about 230 or 225 yesterday. Right now we're wicking on it. I'd see a good possibility for getting up to this 0.5 kind of bounce before we would continue down. I don't think you're just going to drop out and just keep going downwards, but there's just a lot of areas now that we've kind of built up these resistances. And I don't necessarily like to look at the USD pair a ton. I know that's just how a lot of people came into the space. And that's actually why I look at Coinbase for this Ethereum chart as well. I think that's where a lot of your newer money came into, and it's going to exit that way as well. So if we go back to the pair, the Ethereum BTC pair here as well. So right now we do have some room for a bounce. And I think that's, again, a really good reason why we are seeing this opportunity play. If I can get some movement, you know, if you're Arthur from BitMEX and you were kind of feeding in to short into my bids to get this bounce here, you're going to also push this pair up and they're going to accumulate more Bitcoin. But overall, I'm seeing two bear moves kind of in the works here that then, you know, lay up for Bitcoin going down as well. In my final chart here, the good old Bitcoin Cash. How could Faboose not look at Bitcoin Cash? So I think there's a really good narrative here for Bitcoin Cash, and that's being, you know, it was a fork of Bitcoin. We had this huge hype, you know, back last year. It actually started in about March, right? A lot of people in the space right now don't realize that Bitcoin was at an 80, 85, 90% dominance before we kind of had this huge narrative that was built around, you know, Bitcoin's unusable, Bitcoin's mempool's full, it's so expensive to use. And that's really what gave birth to this whole alt season, altcoin movement, right? Like, they're not wrong. There were a lot of problems during that time. I think a lot of them were manufactured problems. I think there's a lot of players, and we've proven now over time that this was a thing. People were spamming the networks. You had different groups such as Roger Ver and you know, Bitmain. A lot of those places had incentives to push it down. So what we're seeing right now actually looks a lot like kind of a deflating scam to me, right? I mean, if we look at this, a lot of these pumps kind of just get completely rejected. They've never really made a reversal on this. Every time it's kind of a hype pump. So I see the same kind of thing. It looks a little exhausted on the selling. I think maybe you can get a bounce up here to maybe 551, but overall, you're going to kind of crash down. And I think a lot of this, you can look at Paycoin. Paycoin is a great example for us of what happens to some of these scam coins that have kind of false promises or, you know, this really great narrative. Theirs was this $20 pay floor, or kind of the lowest that the coin could go would be $20. There's no way that you can claim that. Like, that's just not how markets work. And now here we are. right? All of a sudden, the SEC is starting to come out, with regulations saying, okay, ICOs are securities. It's kind of the same thing for good old Josh here, right? They had a mining operation, Bitmain, for example, and then they also had, kind of this coin that they went into, Bitcoin Cash, which they had all these promises for. And obviously, we know how Paycoin ended up. So just to hit it home, I think Bitcoin, you might get a run up here to about 6,700 before we'd see more downside to attack this floor, taking us down. We could start testing this 4K area that's never been tested before. It wouldn't be that crazy. It would long term be good for the bulls, right? You need to test these areas. For Ethereum, I think really they haven't felt the pain yet. If we look over kind of this long term, 100's never been tested. And then we also have this 50 area that really has never been tested. We've never revisited. I wouldn't think it would be that crazy. Bitcoin Cash, small bounce, but overall, I think the long term is it's going to deflate to nothing.
That was great. Thanks. Not just because you think Bitcoin Cash is going to zero. Yeah, it's funny. I saw that Josh Garza story, and I forgot they even existed. And
Right.
when you mentioned the $20 floor, I was like, oh, that's right. That's what that was about. All right.
History tells us a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it does, man. Crazy. All right, Coop, you still there?
I'm still here.
Still alive and kicking. All right, we're gonna switch to the bull. Coop has promised to bring the FA that you all crave.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably just ignore these charts off the bat. So we'll go over to this dominance chart that Fabrice was showing. Bitcoin dominance has been killing it. Money has been leaving alts. I think I saw some posts recently about how the Bitcoin market cap is the same as where it was maybe like a half a year ago, and the alt market is down 100 bill. So that's good. Hash power is becoming more distributed. Bitmain wrecking themselves, I think, is a very bullish thing for Bitcoin to go through. So we're getting more decentralized there. Lightning usage is killing it. It's through the roof. There's a ton of upgrades recently, privacy upgrades along with UTX improvements like batching and Schnorr signatures coming out on Bitcoin. So the protocol's improving. That's like one of the best things about this bear market. It really lets people dive in to get work done and really work on the important stuff and improving the technology. This CNBC poll, I know everyone likes to counter trade that. It's not too significant, but this bearish poll, so that's nice to see. Like I said, hash rate is through the roof lately. It's up 50% in the last 6 months.
Yeah, why do you think
awesome.
That is?
What, the hash rate?
Yeah, so Max Kaiser, I was at some dinner and we were talking about other industries like gold, like actual mining, or like oil drilling, and in those markets, anytime the asset value goes down, you generally see a decrease in drilling or mining. But for some reason with Bitcoin, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Do you have any speculation as to why?
Yeah, I think people just see that as a safe bet for entering into the sphere. We're coming up on another halving, and we're at 18 million of the Bitcoins or something around that have been mined. So I think people are trying to get their last piece of the pie. Mining equipment tends to drop in value when it's harder to sustain. So I think it's, for people to enter the sphere, it's like a pretty reasonably safe bet. And yeah, I think that's just it.
Gotcha.
So those are some of the main bullish things over on Ethereum. I really like this article that came out about how almost 62% of ICO treasuries have sold their holdings in Ethereum. So I think that's good overall. getting a lot less money locked up. Casper sharding is on its way out. I know Vlad just made a post about that, how he's been working on that. People are excited about that. So those are all strong things for Ethereum.
What about the change in inflation? Do you think that's as bullish as people think it is?
No, I mean, I don't. No, I shouldn't argue the bear case in that, but no, I mean, I don't think it's bullish that, you know, this core group of developers have such a say in what happens with, you know, the monetary policies of what's supposed to be like an open source protocol. So no, I would say that's bearish. And then I'm not too bullish on many alts, so I'm gonna have to bite the bullet here. And because I'm a lifelong bag holder of Dragon, just pull out the Dragon chart and hope and pray that Dragon over the long term is bullish. You know, so me and Crypto Bully can be salvaged after all. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
What's the evidence for Dragon Chain being bullish? You just want to show it, say, hey, I'm a bag holder. Just let me dump on you as it goes up.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much evidence for that case. But you know, looking at the long-term Bitcoin chart, I think it's kind of hard not to be bullish. We've retested 6K 3 times now, and it seems like a pretty safe bet as a floor. So unless we, you know, close to 6K or below 6K again, I think we have a strong bullish case for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to be certain one way or the other. I think the overhanging bearish FA stuff is the ETF probably gets denied, and the Mt. Gox coins create supply pressure, and we just die eventually. So I think the triangle TA stuff will actually play out before any of the ETF stuff, and then when the ETF announcement happens, like in December or whatever it is, that'll just be part of the narrative. Like, oh, you know, that we were already this, and then we're adding on this, and then we go with whoever. I agree with Faboose that testing like 3K, 4K is possible. You know, just even numbers, 3K, 4K, 5K. I don't want to go there, but just based on how charts work, certainly possible.
That's a big thing. It's like it's nothing that anyone wants, right? Like as I'm going through that, it's like, oh God, like looking at this, but it's like there's so many arguments there. And you know, just looking at even I think the hash power, actually there's like kind of a hidden story there as well, right? So hash is going up. Price has pretty much been going down, except, you know, actually maybe if you don't mind, I'm just going to turn this back on so I can just kind of look at my chart as I'm doing this as well. So we have all these coins. You can see I was looking up, you know, how many actually SHA-256 coins are out there, right? So if you look at the overall market, if my coin is down 90% and I have this one coin that's kind of, you know, sideways here, we'll say, all right, I'm going to turn on my hash power to back that up, right? I might be able to make a little bit of my money back doing that. But at the same time, like I completely agree, the market cap that we had up there, there we go. Like we're climbing back up, right? Like that's freaking awesome. But the thing is, all that money still has to be absorbed. So Bitcoin in price can go down while market dominance is still going up. And I think that's a big thing, you know, that I started getting think about it when I was looking at this here. It's like, holy cow, all right, I can still go back up to 80% dominance and still hit this 4K area, retest this area, and we're good to go. Kind of lining up with what you're saying, Josh, timeline, you know, all of a sudden we start looking at when some of these ETFs could be talked about. So volume wise, not seeing it right now to call this a bottom, but hey, maybe something will come out to prove us wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you got to think that as soon as that announcement hits, it's just going to have ripple effects of people, you know, sharks in the water already.
Right. I mean, right there, right? I mean, 8,500, prime example.
Yeah, and if we break 6K, I think it'll be swift downside. But the upside is easy to calculate. It's just local highs, like I was saying. on that video I made the other day. All right, guys, thanks for coming. We have
Hey,
Kupsu, follow him on Twitter. Faboose, follow him on Twitter. I'll have their stuff in the description below. Like, dislike, share, subscribe. I'll try to put the links that we talked about as well. That Hacker Noon article I haven't seen, so I'd like to see that. And thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome. Take care.